Greatest Pacers of all time, NOS 31-40. While it's possible to have an argument over the greatest Pacers player of all time, a consensus can almost certainly be reached. But who's the 12th best? The 37th? The 50th? Now we've got something to argue about. In recognition of the Pacers' 50th season, we're ranking the franchise's top 50 players, publishing 10 each day. 31. Al Harrington. Harrington had an odd career. He is most closely associated with the Pacers. He played parts of 7 seasons with the franchise, no more than 3 with any other, but had more success elsewhere. The 29th overall pick in 1998 out of high school, developed into one of the league's top 6th men, averaging 12.8 points and 6.3 rebounds between the ages of 21 to 23. But Harrington, who finished second in the 6th Man of the Year award voting in 2004, wasn't satisfied coming off the bench and asked to be traded. The Pacers dealt him to Atlanta for Steven Jackson. "I needed that," Harrington told USA Today. "Being here, Indiana, was a sheltered life. The basketball was pretty easy as far as us being a good team. Being the 6th man, all I had to do was come in and change the game. In Atlanta, I was able to step to the forefront. On a young team like Atlanta, I had to lead on and off the court. It helped me grow up." He returned 3 years later in exchange for a first-round pick. The Hawks selected AC Law, with team president Larry Bird saying, "It's a pleasure to have his personality back as well." But the stay was short. After 36 games, averaging 15.9 points, the Pacers dealt Harrington to Golden State, with Jackson, for Mike Dunleavy and Troy Murphy. "I didn't see Bird didn't see the team elevating to the point where you could look out and say to yourself, I think this team, if they keep improving, could really do something in the Eastern Conference," then Pacers CEO Donnie Walsh said. "There were just some parts of our team that I wasn't sure were fitting together the right way." 32. Wayman Tisdale. The Pacers' history with number 2 picks prior to Rick Smits was filled with disappointment. A year after they watched their number 2 overall pick, traded for 1 season of Tom Owens, turned into an opportunity to draft Michael Jordan, and 2 years after landing Steve Stepanovich instead of Ralph Sampson, the Pacers lost a coin flip for Patrick Ewing, landing Wayman Tisdale instead. There have been few more decorated college players. The 6'9", 240-pound Tisdale was a 3-time AP first-team All-American at Oklahoma. He averaged 25.6 points on 57.8% shooting and 10.2 rebounds, and was a member of the gold medal-winning 1984 U.S. national team. Tisdale was effective for the Pacers, averaging 15.2 points and 6.4 rebounds in 3+ seasons, but was traded for LaSalle Thompson, who went from averaging 15.0 points per game with Sacramento to 5.8 in parts of 8 seasons with Indiana, and Randy Whitman, 2.5 points in parts of 4 seasons. "I didn't think we had the chemistry," Donnie Walsh said at the time. "We had good players, but they didn't fit. We've hired a new coach, and basically what we're trying to do is surround him with players who will blend more with his style. Tisdale is a low-post scorer. That's his style, and our plans call for Rick Smits to play the low post, and there would not have been enough time for Wayman." The next season, the Pacers reached the playoffs, beginning a steady climb in the East, so it's hard to argue with Walsh's decision. Tisdale eventually played 12 seasons in the NBA and became an accomplished jazz musician, recording 8 albums. He died May 16, 2009 due to cancer at the age of 44. 33. Travis Best. Perhaps no player is more symbolic of the mid to late 90s Pacers than Best. He was a late first-round pick, 23rd overall, who was a perfect fit for his role on successful teams, though never a star. He only averaged double figures in scoring once, 2000-01, in his 7 seasons with the franchise, but could score as needed, run an offense, 3.8 assists per game, and shoot 36.2 3-point percentage. He primarily came off the bench but was good enough to start. When Jamal Tinsley took over as the starting point guard as a rookie in 2001-02, Best asked to be traded. He was dealt to Chicago with Jalen Rose and spare change for Ron Artest and Brad Miller. 34. Chris Mullin. Chris Mullin will always be a Golden State Warrior first, but don't discount his 3 seasons with the Pacers. He averaged 11.3 and 10.1 points per game his 2 seasons as a starter, then graciously stepped into a reserve role when Jalen Rose was promoted to the starting lineup. The result was a trip to the NBA Finals. Mullen played more postseason games with the Pacers, 38, than he did with Golden State, 33, and holds Indiana franchise records for three-point percentage, .465 in 1998-99, and free throw percentage, .939 in 97-98. His sweet stroke .472, .441, .912 was made for Indiana. 35. Mike Bantam. Bantam was a regular for the often bleak post-ABA Pacers, averaging 13.7 points, 6.6 rebounds, and 3.0 assists per game in 4+ seasons, also serving as the team's captain. He was a member of the ill-fated 1972 U.S. national team that lost to the Soviet Union in a controversial gold medal game in Munich. The U.S. was up by a point with 3 seconds left, but officials gave the Russians 3 chances at the final 3 seconds, and they scored on the third to win, 51-50. He returned to school in 2015 at Columbia, according to a New York Times article. He left Notre Dame for the NBA prior to finishing his degree, but his parents were school teachers and Murphy was an excellent student growing up. What does he miss about the NBA? "I miss the Sox," he told the New York Times. "The Sox were unbelievable. There's something about NBA Sox." 36. Johnny Davis. In 1978, the Indiana Pacers held the number 1 overall pick in the draft. If Larry Bird had committed to leave Indiana State, he could have been an Indiana Pacer. But Bird, a draft-eligible junior under rules that have since changed, chose to return to school. The Pacers dealt the number 1 pick to Portland for the number 3 pick, Rick Roby, who, coincidentally, was traded to the Celtics later that season for Billy Knight and Davis. Boston, of course, took Bird with the number 6 pick and signed him after Indiana State reached the national championship game. Yes, the Pacers would have been better off with Michael Thompson, Portland's number 1 pick, than Davis and Knight. But Davis was a solid contributor at point guard during his 4 seasons, averaging 16.4 points and 5.4 assists, and helping the franchise reach the playoffs in the NBA for the first time in 1981 under coach Jack McKinney. Davis was traded to Atlanta for a second-round pick after the 1981-82 season. He has been a long-time assistant in the NBA. "The year that I left going to Atlanta, that was the same year they drafted Clark Kellogg and he was a phenomenal young player," Davis told NBA.com. "You also had a really good center in Herb Williams, so the nucleus and the talent that was there was really, really good. We also had Billy Knight there, who was one of the most prolific scorers I had ever played with, and so it was just a situation that if not for 1 or 2 things, who knows what could have happened there because we had started to assemble good talent on that team." Davis was a key figure in the first of 4 franchise-altering decisions that all went against the Pacers in a 8-year span. Trading the number 1 pick in 1978 instead of selecting Larry Bird. Trading their 1984 first-round draft pick in 1981 to Portland for Steve Owens. It would be the number 2 pick in the draft and the Pacers could have selected Michael Jordan, or Sam Bowie. Losing a coin flip for the number 1 pick in 1982 and getting Steve Stepanovich instead of Ralph Sampson. The draft lottery was created in 1985, giving each of the 7 non-playoff teams a 14.3% chance at the number 1 pick. The Pacers finished second, getting Wayman Tisdale instead of Patrick Ewing. 7. Steve Stepanovich. As noted above, the consolation prize for losing the coin flip for the number 1 overall pick in 1983, Ralph Sampson. Sampson is somewhat unfairly considered a bust. He averaged 20.7 points, 10.9 rebounds, 2.8 assists and 2.0 blocks in his first 3 seasons before knee injuries drained his talent. Stipo was serviceable, 13.2 points, 7.8 rebounds, 48.4% in his career. But he was done after 5 years due to his own issues with his knees, and the Pacers made the playoffs once, not exactly the return you're looking for on a number 2 overall pick. 38. Troy Murphy. The Pacers acquired Troy Murphy and Mike Dunleavy in a deal that sent Steven Jackson and Al Harrington out of town after the brawl in Detroit. Murphy was a solid contributor to the post-brawl Pacers, averaging 13.3 points and 9.2 rebounds in 3+ seasons with the team, though Indiana didn't make the playoffs during his tenure. He was an early example of a stretch 5, shooting 41.3% on 3-pointers with the Pacers. 39. Mike Dunleavy. A fitting coincidence that Dunleavy falls behind Murphy after they came to the Pacers together in the post-Brawl trade. Dunleavy had skills. He averaged 19.1 points, 5.2 rebounds, and 3.5 assists in his only season in Indiana with more than 70 games, but has primarily been a role player elsewhere. His 14.0 points and 4.6 rebounds with the Pacers were the best numbers of his 6, and counting, NBA stops. He continued his tour of the Central Division this season, joining the Cavaliers after previous stops in Indiana, Milwaukee, and Chicago. But instead of being dealt to Detroit, the Cavs sent him to Atlanta as part of a package for Kyle Korver. 40. Lance Stephenson. Few Pacers have packed more into such a short period of time with the team. There was Bad Lance. He told the media that LeBron James showed a sign of weakness by talking trash back at Stephenson in the postseason. He flashed a choke sign at James. Stephenson blew in James' ear. There was a physical altercation with teammate Evan Turner prior to a playoff series against Atlanta. There was also Good Lance. After riding the bench, 54 games total, his first 2 seasons, Stephenson stepped into the starting lineup when Danny Granger couldn't bounce back from his knee injury in 2012-13 and was productive enough for the Pacers to make the Eastern Conference Finals. Stephenson then raised his game the following year, averaging 13.8 points, 7.2 rebounds, and 4.6 assists. He turned down a 5-year, $44 million deal offer from the Pacers after the 2013-14 season in favor of a 3-year, $27 million deal from Charlotte. In the 2 seasons since leaving Indiana, Stephenson has averaged 8.3 points on 42.5% shooting, 3.8 rebounds, and 2.9 assists. He will miss the rest of this season due to injury.